Hey, Shawn here from 3M. As always, thanks for joining me for this video today. Today's topic is the use of flexible automotive foams and their applications in the collision repair process. Hey, before we get started, let's discuss a couple things. First, let's make sure we're using the proper PPE. For today's video, I'm going to be using safety glasses, nitrile gloves, and a respirator. Secondly, keep in mind that these videos are designed for a professional setting such as a collision repair shop. If you want more information on our safety and warranties, I've included a description in the link below. All right, let's get started. Before we start to talk about the individual applications of these foams, let's just talk about the general handling of these foams. Keep in mind, this foam expands immediately as you extrude it. So there's some handling issues we need to discuss. Now, before I put my respirator on, I'll explain what I'm going to do. I'm first going to remove this retaining ring and the red cap. I'll set that aside and save that. Now, next thing I'm going to do is equalize the cartridge. I'm going to do this upwards into a paper towel just to ensure that I have product coming out of both sides of this cartridge and that there's no obstructions in there that could clog that nozzle. Then once I do that, I'm going to run just a little bead out on my mixing board just to make sure I have a thorough mix. And then I'm going to extrude some into this container here just so we can see how it foams up. Okay? So I'm going to put my respirator on and we'll get started. Okay, after seeing that extrusion of that foam here, it probably brings up a couple questions. And one of the things is, now what do we do with this cartridge? So if we want to reuse this cartridge a second time, if we don't completely use it, there's a couple things we need to know. Now, as you can see, the foam continued to run out for a period of time, for 30 seconds or so. And what it's doing is it's continuing to expand. Now, there's a couple options we have here. With this particular applicator, because the plungers are designed to automatically back off and take the pressure off the cartridge, in this case, we're going to remove the cartridge. I'm going to remove the nozzle. I'm going to clean off the original red plug that came with it, noting which side was the black and which side was the yellow, and place that back into the cartridge and replace the retaining collar. Now that will prevent the foam from foaming up back down into the cartridge and destroying the cartridge, making it unusable the next time where you'll have some dried material in there, okay? That's another reason, by the way, why we equalized before we did this, to make sure there were no obstructions or dried material in there. Now, we have another option depending on the applicator. Again, these plungers on this gray applicator automatically back off, so they won't put pressure on the foam. However, this type here that has a friction type rod, if you have this in there, you can allow that foam to foam out until it stops, and then you can actually take the plungers and put pressure on the cartridge, hit the little button on the back, and that'll keep that constant pressure to keep that foam from backing into that cartridge and making it unusable. So we have to think about those things after we're finished, okay? Now, another thing we want to think about or be aware of is this foam will expand depending on the atmospheric temperatures in your shop or facility. The hotter it is, more expansion you're going to get. It will expand anywhere between 5 to 10 times of its original liquid volume. So be aware of that. So when you're estimating the amount of foam you want to put in a particular cavity, be aware of that and how hot it is in your shop. If it's 100 degrees, it's going to expand quite a bit more than in this 70-degree shop we're in now. So with those things in mind, use the cartridge correctly, make sure you're equalizing to get a good mix, and then store that cartridge properly when you're done. Okay, another thing we need to know about this expanding flexible foam is that it does expand very quickly out of the nozzle. However, if we extrude it too quickly on a vertical surface, such as inside of a door or some type of a cavity or panel, it'll just run down the panel and really won't end up where you want it. So the trick is to extrude it through the nozzle, keep an eye on it, and as it gets close to the end, kind of pause and allow it to start foaming its way out of the nozzle, and then it'll go where you want it to be and stay there. So anytime you're working on a vertical surface, just slow down a little bit, allow it to foam out of the nozzle before you begin to apply it to the panel. Okay, so let's discuss this flexible foam. Again, this is a urethane expanding foam that's typically used to either stabilize flutter in panels or deaden sound. Now, a very common application in a collision repair shop is a door skin replacement. So this plexiglass is representing the outer skin of the door. Once we remove that outer skin during replacement, now we're left with the intrusion beam and some foam typically left on that intrusion beam. Now that foam, typically from the OEMs, is a flexible foam. Now we've got the flexible foam here. We have a couple options. So we can either completely remove this foam, and it usually comes off pretty easy using some kind of a scraper or a razor knife, but we can remove it and start over and replace it with another foam. Now the problem here begins with the fact that this flexible foam that does expand expands too quickly for you to actually place it on the intrusion beam and then replace your skin. It's going to be expanded too high to push that skin back down. So there's a couple things we can do instead. One of the things we can do is, as I say, we can save these little pieces of foam, and we can, sometimes we may need to scrape them off of the replaced door skin. Sometimes they come off on the skin, sometimes they come off and stay on this panel here. But we can save these and bond these back on using a different type of foam. This is the NVH foam here. Now this foam here does not expand. It's really designed to attach existing foam. So when you have a foam in some difficult areas and you don't want to duplicate that shape and start from scratch, you can bond the existing foam from the OEM back in place. So that's where this foam would come in handy. So what we would do is, again, remove these, use some of the NVH material on the front and back and bond these back on, and then we would just replace our door skin over the top of that. Okay? Now, this flexible foam you're also going to find in cavities. So you may find this in sail panels when you replace a quarter panel. You may find it down in the dogleg area during a quarter panel replacement. But there's going to be other areas where you may find this foam, and it's going to be in cavities that would look something like this. So we're looking at the flexible foam here, and again, this is flexible because it rebounds. That's how you could tell which foam to replace it with. But you would actually extrude it into the panel or into that cavity and allow it to expand. So there's a couple different uses of this flexible foam that we're going to see. Always, again, consult that OEM information to see if they have specific call-outs for which foam to use. But if they don't have any call-outs, that's where you need to decide what your best option is. Hey, thanks again for joining me for this video. Please comment below, share, and please hit subscribe. Also, check out our 3M Collision Repair Academy. We'll see you next time.